What is limiting you from experiencing peace within your own sexuality? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. In today's video, what I'd like to do is have a look at the big picture around sexuality, look at what people have believed over history, and then look at what it is that or who you really are so that you can choose. So big picture, guys, let's summarize, let's have a look. I had a very interesting conversation with Joshua Smith yesterday. We were talking about a workshop that we're doing on head and heart. It's going to be a series of videos where we look at what is the best, what is better when it comes to communicating, decision making. Should we listen to the head? Should we listen to the heart? And it was a fascinating conversation. And it's fascinating when we hear something from the space of the new, when we're open, when we have an open heart to seeing somebody else's perspective. So I thought what we'd do today is we'd have a look at big picture, because it's never about right and it's never about wrong. It's about how you feel. So big picture, sexuality. How does it work? Who we are, if you remember, we are, I believe, and as you know, a belief literally is just a box. So my box is that we are a spiritual being having a human experience. So this spiritual being that we are is divinely connected to Source, is divinely connected to God, to whatever you believe, and this divine connection over here, this is, oopsie, what's going on here? The universe is agreeing. Give me a thumbs up. So this, the soul, this is who you are. So some people might call it your gut instinct. Some people might call it the intrinsic part of you. But I call it your soul. Okay. So this is the spiritual aspect of who you are. This is where you connect with who you authentically are. And then what we have is we have the mind. Now the mind thinks thoughts, okay? And where do those thoughts come from? This is what's interesting, is that the human has the ability to think. And the thoughts are under control of different things, like the thoughts are just a consequence of. So they are either the consequence of society's belief systems, cultural belief systems, or religious belief systems. So we have cultural, religious, and societal belief systems that dictate what we think. Then we have the heart, and the heart is our feelings, either high vibrational or low vibrational feelings. And then something different is we actually have the physical body. Okay, so this is the physical body. So what is sex and sexuality? Now, a theorist, I can't remember the name of this particular theorist, but they were talking about how what sex is just a biological urge. So sex is something physical. So physically, we have a biological urge. We physically feel lust. There is actual physical sensations that we feel in our genitals. So this is it. So this is the one part of it, is physically we feel a biological urge. But this theorist talks about how this physical urge is then filtered through. So the mind thinks, okay, I'm feeling a physical urge, right? The way that the mind works is that any thought we have has to be put into a schema. It has to be put into a box in order for us to understand it. Okay, you with me? Thumbs up if you are with me. So what happens is it says, I'm feeling a physical urge. Okay, now that then gets filtered through, that then gets interpreted through the lens of society. So here we have society. This thought gets filtered through that which society says is acceptable and not acceptable. And then you're left with a new thought. But then also it gets refiltered through your cultural norms, and you then have a thought. That thought is then refiltered through your religious beliefs, the religious belief. Now, these are all unconscious. This happens in a split second. Sometimes if it's in your conscious awareness, it's great, but it happens within seconds, and it's unconscious. And all of these we bring to our conscious awareness, but these are what we call collective consciousnesses. So there's a collective consciousness in the society, the country that you live, maybe even the government. I haven't spoken about the government, but maybe that is own religion, of course. Well, that falls under all of these. So maybe you're filtering through many different filters, and in the end, you're left with something completely different. But here's my invitation to you. These are all the societal consciousnesses that are unconscious within us. So if I'm doing some research over sexuality over time, what I found was that sexuality really started becoming something bigger in the 1800s, when society started becoming a lot more dense, a lot more populated. With all the revolutions that started taking place, people used to start living in cities. And then sexuality started becoming something more. Before then, we're just living in the caves. It was just a small community. So it wasn't seen as something that was such a dicot of emotions. Then, of course, after the First World War, people started studying this concept of sexuality. So you see, now people are starting to study it, and experts, whenever an expert says something, we tend to believe it as correct. So we start to filter our beliefs through what the experts say. And then in the 60s, there was the advent of birth control. So there was a new way of believing and feeling how, you could start experimenting a bit more around your own desires, your own sexuality, without the fears of pregnancy, for example. This is everything that's happening over time. Now, Louise Hay talks about how, with regards to sexuality, it is not about a right or a wrong. It's about finding a balance within you. So it's about finding that balance where you are not harming yourself and you are not harming anybody else. So you could, for example, you have lots of sex or not a lot of sex, or it's not what you're doing, it is the intention behind what you are doing. Does that make sense to you? So it's as long as Louise Hay talks about how, as long as you have an open heart and you're not hurting yourself or others, and that hurt for me would be oppression, when you are suppressing somebody, when you are dishonoring somebody, not only that person, but maybe yourself. So it's not about using this as an excuse. It is about being in awareness of where you are dishonoring your truth when it comes to expressing your sexuality. So are you abusing yourself? When we come to the questions, are you abusing yourself? Are you abusing other people emotionally or physically or mentally, manipulating them? Do you equate sex with love, or is it something just physical, or is it something just societal? How do you equate sex? What is the belief that you are equating to it? What do you feel during sex? Is it loving? Is it tender? Do you feel powerful? Do you feel guilty? So we have the feelings that are associated with sex. How do you feel when you are having sex? So it's about seeing the big picture. So it's the awareness this week. It's the awareness, looking at how do you feel. List down all the different feelings that you feel when you have sex, because these feelings either are a result of the soul, or they are the result of your mind filtering. You feel guilty, and that is the feeling that you feel as a consequence. So today is this video is really just encouraging you to have a look at not attaching a right or a wrong around how you're feeling and what you're thinking, but seeing where that may have come from. Because then you can now begin to choose in the awareness of the big picture. You can begin to use your thoughts and choose and logically deduce and use your mind as the powerful source that it is, but you are in control of your thoughts. I always talk about this. So you have the power to choose. You have the power to interpret, rather than society. It's not outside in, it's inside out. So the willingness within me to see the big picture greets the willingness within you to see the big picture as well. Any questions that you have, feel free to write them in the comments section below now. Namaste, beautiful souls. We will see you in video number 4. See you soon. Bye.